A low growl echoes through the damp fog of Bodmin Moor. For decades, people have reported a massive, phantom cat stalking this lonely landscape, a creature that should not exist in the English countryside. By the end of this, you will understand the full, strange story behind the beast of Bodmin Moor, a mystery woven from equal parts fact, folklore, and fear. We will sift through blurry photographs and chilling eyewitness accounts and question whether this is a flesh and blood predator or something far more ancient. What kind of truth do you think is waiting in the mist? Bodmin Moor is a land that seems to breathe with its own ancient life. This vast expanse in Cornwall is a tapestry of rolling hills and treacherous bogs, where granite tors claw at a sky often heavy with cloud. The wind here has a voice, a constant whisper through the gorse and heather. It is a place of stark and lonely beauty, a landscape that feels both timeless and profoundly isolated. For centuries, this terrain has been a silent witness to human history, from the stone circles of prehistoric peoples to the ruins of old farmsteads. That long memory seems to seep up from the very soil. When the famous Cornish mists roll in, the world contracts, familiar paths vanish, sounds become muffled, and the line between the solid ground and the spectral air begins to blur. It is in this environment, where visibility drops to a few feet and the rational world feels distant, that the mind begins to work differently. Every shadow in the periphery could be movement. Every strange call on the wind could be a cry. This is not merely a backdrop for a story. It is an active participant. The moor does not just hide things, it seems to conjure them. Why would a phantom cat choose this place? Perhaps because the land itself is already half a legend. Long before the name Beast of Bodmin Moor was ever whispered, the stories were already there. They were not front-page news, but quiet, unsettling tales passed between farmers over stone walls. The earliest accounts reach back into the first half of the 20th century, a time when the moor was even more remote and isolated. These were not reports of a phantom, but of a very real and very large cat-like creature. Farmers would speak of finding livestock, usually sheep, with injuries that defied explanation. The throats were torn with a precision that local dogs or foxes could not manage. The kills were clean, efficient, and terrifyingly powerful. Some spoke of seeing a shadowy form, far larger than any domestic cat, slinking away into the twilight. It was a creature that did not belong, a predator out of place. One persistent story from the 1940s tells of a farmer who saw a massive black cat, as big as a Labrador, carrying a full-grown lamb in its jaws with an ease that seemed impossible. He raised his rifle, but the animal moved with such startling speed that it vanished into the mist before he could even take aim. These anecdotes were often dismissed as exaggerations, the products of an overactive imagination fueled by the moor's lonely atmosphere. But the stories never truly went away. They became part of the local fabric, a piece of folklore that felt just real enough to cause a shiver on a dark night. Why were these early whispers so important? They laid a foundation of genuine, grassroots testimony that predates any media frenzy. They suggest that the phenomenon did not suddenly appear, but emerged slowly from the land itself, a secret the moor had been keeping for a very long time. Everything changed when the local whispers found a megaphone. By the 1970s, the scattered tales that had haunted the farms for generations began to coalesce into something bigger, something with a name. It was the local press that first gave the phenomenon a public identity. Reporters, always on the lookout for a compelling local story, started to actively seek out and publish these accounts of large, mysterious cats. What had been private worries between neighbors were now headlines. The phrase "Beast of Bodmin Moor" began to appear in print, a neat and terrifying label that captured the public's imagination completely. This was no longer just a farmer's tale. It was a monster in the making, sanctioned by the front page. The coverage created a powerful feedback loop. Every new article encouraged more people to come forward with their own stories, some recent, some buried for years. The sheer volume of reports began to feel like undeniable proof. Then, in the 1980s, the story broke out of Cornwall. National television news programs sent crews to the misty moorland. They interviewed shaken eyewitnesses on camera and swept their lenses across the imposing, empty landscape, creating a perfect atmosphere of suspense and mystery for a national audience. Suddenly, the beast was not just a local curiosity, it was a national sensation. This media storm fundamentally altered the nature of the mystery. It transformed a series of isolated, personal experiences into a collective cultural event. The beast was now a cryptid, a category of creature that exists in the space between myth and reality, like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster. The name itself, the Beast of Bodmin Moor, did more than just describe, it defined. It packaged a complex, shadowy set of events into a single, marketable entity. People were no longer just seeing a big cat, they were seeing the beast. This shift raises a fascinating question. Did the media simply report on a mystery, or did their coverage actively create the phenomenon as we know it? By giving it a name and a face, they gave the shadows a shape, one that would prove incredibly difficult to erase. So with the legend now firmly planted in the public mind, a pressing question demanded an answer. What exactly were people seeing out there on the moor? The search for the beast's true identity created a cast of suspects, each with its own compelling evidence and stubborn flaws. One of the most popular and plausible theories points to an escaped exotic cat. The idea is that private collectors, perhaps keeping pumas or leopards as status symbols, either accidentally lost their animals or deliberately released them when keeping a growing predator became too dangerous or expensive. This theory gained significant traction in the 1970s, a time when laws regarding the private ownership of dangerous animals were far more lax. A puma, for instance, is a powerfully built, tan-colored cat capable of taking down large prey and surviving in a climate not too dissimilar from its native North American habitats. Proponents of this theory argue that such an animal, or even a small breeding population, could easily remain hidden in the moor's vast, rugged terrain, emerging only occasionally to hunt and creating the precise kind of livestock kills that were reported. It is a clean, logical explanation that roots the phenomenon firmly in the real world. Yet, despite numerous alleged sightings and investigations, no concrete proof, like a body, bones, or conclusive DNA evidence from a kill site has ever been produced to confirm a non-native big cat's permanent residence. A second, more skeptical theory suggests that the beast is not an exotic import at all, but a case of profound misidentification. Could witnesses be seeing a known animal and simply misjudging its size and nature in the poor light and heart-pounding adrenaline of a sudden encounter? The primary candidate here is the common black domestic cat, seen from a distance, silhouetted against the mist. A large feral cat could appear much bigger and more menacing than it truly is. Other possibilities include large dogs, perhaps sighthounds like greyhounds, which have a lean, feline-like build when running, or even wild boar, whose dark, bulky forms can look unfamiliar and threatening. This theory asks us to consider the fallibility of human perception, especially under conditions of stress and fear. Our minds are excellent at filling in blanks, and on a lonely moor at dusk, the brain might transform a stray dog into a monster. But this explanation struggles to account for the sheer number of consistent reports from experienced outdoors people, farmers, and police officers who are familiar with the local wildlife and insist they saw something completely different, something that moved with the fluid, powerful grace of a great cat, not the loping gait of a dog. Then we have the more fringe scientific possibilities. like a genetic anomaly. Could a population of wildcats in Britain have produced an unusually large individual, a throwback to a more ancient form? Or perhaps it is an entirely new species, evolved in isolation. While intriguing, these ideas lack any fossil record or genetic sampling to support them, leaving them in the realm of remote speculation. And finally, we cannot ignore the theory that lives in the shadows of the other explanations. Perhaps the beast is not a physical creature at all. Perhaps it is a phantom, a spectral entity born from the moor itself. This idea connects the beast to older, deeper folklore, to tales of guardian spirits, shapeshifters, and omens. In this view, the beast is a manifestation of the land's wild, untamable heart, a symbol of nature's refusal to be fully mapped and understood. It is the feeling of being watched by something ancient when you know you are alone. This theory is, of course, impossible to prove or disprove with science, which is precisely where its enduring power lies. Each of these suspects tells us something different. The escaped cat theory speaks to human carelessness and the consequences of our desire to own the wild. The misidentification theory speaks to the tricks our own minds can play, and the supernatural theory speaks to the timeless human need for mystery, for a world that still holds dark corners and ancient secrets. So which of these suspects is the true culprit? The evidence, as we are about to see, is as elusive as the beast itself. Perhaps the most compelling explanation for the beast is rooted not in ancient folklore, but in a modern law. The Dangerous Wild Animals Act of 1976 was a landmark piece of legislation designed to regulate the private ownership of exotic pets. Before this act, it was surprisingly possible for private collectors in Britain to keep animals like pumas, leopards, and lynxes with little to no oversight. The new law imposed strict licensing requirements, demanding secure enclosures and proper care that many owners could not or would not provide. This created a powerful incentive. Faced with the cost and complication of compliance, some owners may have taken the simplest way out. They released their animals into the wild. The timing is uncanny. The surge in beast of Bodmin reports began in earnest in the late 1970s, directly following the Act's passage. It is a theory that feels almost too perfect, a clear and logical origin story for a phantom cat. But could a tropical animal like a puma truly survive on a damp, wind-swept British moor? The answer is a surprising yes. Pumas have one of the largest ranges of any terrestrial mammal in the Americas, from the frozen Yukon to the southernmost Andes. They are incredibly adaptable generalists, capable of hunting a wide variety of prey. On Bodmin Moor, a population of wild deer and an abundance of sheep would provide a more than adequate food source. These cats are solitary and elusive by nature, masters of stealth that could easily avoid human detection in the moor's vast, rugged landscape. The real question is not about survival, but about breeding. For the beast to be more than a lone, aging escapee, a breeding population would need to exist. While the chances of a male and female being released in the same area seem remote, it is not impossible. A single pregnant female released in the 70s could have established a tiny, hidden lineage, one that persists to this day, explaining sightings across decades. This theory elegantly bridges the gap between the impossible and the plausible, giving a name and a history to the shadow in the mist. It suggests the beast is not a monster, but a refugee, a living consequence of human decisions cast out into the wilderness. But there is another layer to this mystery, one that cannot be explained by escaped pets or mistaken identity. To understand this perspective, you must listen to the older stories, the ones that were whispered here long before any Dangerous Wild Animals Act. The beast of Bodmin Moor fits perfectly into a much older British tradition of spectral animals, particularly the phantom black dogs known as black shuck or the jitrash. These entities are not mere animals. They are omens, guardians of liminal spaces, often appearing on old tracks, bridges, and, most tellingly, desolate moors. They are described as massive, shadowy canines with glowing eyes, whose appearance sometimes precedes a death or a disaster. The beast shares this archetype, a large, dark, predatory form that appears and vanishes with an uncanny silence, forever linked to a specific, lonely place. It behaves less like a biological creature and more like a recurring apparition, a piece of the landscape that has temporarily taken form. This connection to folklore suggests the beast might be a shapeshifter of sorts, a spirit that adapts its form to the fears of the time. In an age of global travel and exotic imports, our collective anxiety manifests as an escaped big cat. In earlier centuries, it might have been a demonic hound or a fairy creature. The form changes, but the essential nature remains the same, a sentinel of the wild places. This idea is deeply intertwined with the concept of genius loci, the spirit of a place. Bodmin Moor is not an empty stage for this drama. It is a living participant. Its history is steeped in the occult, from ancient stone circles that align with celestial bodies to ruins that are said to be haunted. The land itself seems to hold a memory, an energy that can impress itself upon susceptible minds. Could it be that certain individuals, when walking that fine line between the mist and the solid ground, somehow tap into this residual energy? They might not see a physical cat, but rather a psychic projection, a thought form given shape by the collective fears and stories attached to that land for centuries. The beast, in this light, is not something you can shoot or trap, because it is not truly there in a physical sense. It is a phenomenon, an experience. It is the Moor's way of reminding us that some territories are not meant to be fully conquered or understood. They guard their secrets jealously, and sometimes those secrets have teeth. So, is the beast a flesh and blood predator, or is it the latest incarnation of a timeless guardian spirit, wearing the skin of a cat to speak to a modern world? The whispers and theories could not be ignored forever. By the mid-1990s, the legend of the beast had grown so loud that it finally reached the corridors of power in London. The sheer volume of reports, coupled with growing anxiety from farmers about their livestock, forced an unprecedented response. The United Kingdom Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food launched an official investigation in 1995. This was not a team of ghost hunters or cryptozoologists, but a government body tasked with applying cold, hard logic to a very hot mystery. For the first time, the phantom cat was going to be scrutinized by the full weight of officialdom. The investigation team spent months on the ground, interviewing witnesses, examining the moor's ecology, and analyzing every piece of physical evidence they could find. They looked at the famous blurry photographs and videos. They inspected the carcasses of slain sheep. They considered the possibility of escaped animals and the capacity of the land to support them. Finally, they released their report, and its conclusion was a stark dismissal. The ministry stated unequivocally that there was no verifiable evidence for the existence of big cats on Bodmin Moor. They argued that the livestock kills were consistent with known predators like dogs, and that the sightings were likely misidentifications of native wildlife. The government had spoken, and it declared the beast a myth. The public reaction was immediate and fierce. For many, the official report felt not like a resolution, but an insult. How could dozens, even hundreds, of seemingly credible people all be wrong? Farmers who had seen the power of the creature first and felt their lived experience was being dismissed by bureaucrats who had spent only a short time in their world. Cryptozoologists and dedicated researchers argued that the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. They pointed out that a solitary, elusive animal could easily evade a short-term investigation, and that the lack of a body or clear photograph proved nothing. The backlash cemented the beast's place in the public consciousness even further. The official denial did not kill the legend. It gave it a new layer of intrigue. Now, the story was no longer just about a mysterious cat. It was about a cover-up. People wondered if the government knew something it wasn't telling, or if it was simply easier to declare the case closed than to admit that a dangerous predator was loose in the countryside. The ministry's report, intended to be the final word, instead became just another chapter, fueling the mystery with the potent energy of official skepticism and public disbelief. Just when the government declared the case closed, the moor itself seemed to answer back. In 1995, the same year as the official investigation, a boy walking along the banks of the River Fowey stumbled upon a discovery that would reignite the entire debate. There, nestled among the rocks and river weeds, was a skull, but this was no ordinary animal skull. It was large, cat-like, and unmistakably predatory. The news spread like wildfire. Here, at last, was the proof everyone had been searching for, the tangible evidence that the ministry's report had so conspicuously failed to find. The initial excitement was electric. Photographs of the skull were splashed across newspapers, and for a moment, it felt like the mystery had been solved. The beast of Bodmin Moor was real, and this was its remains. The skull was sent to the Natural History Museum in London for expert analysis. Scientists there examined it with meticulous care, and their conclusions delivered a devastating blow to the hopeful. The skull was indeed genuine, but it was not from a creature that had lived and died on the moor. It was a leopard skull, and it showed clear signs of having been imported as part of a manufactured rug. The telltale cut marks where the skin would have been stretched and mounted were still visible. This was not the body of the beast, but a prop. Someone had almost certainly taken an old trophy and planted it by the river, a deliberate act of deception. The public reaction to this revelation was a complex mix of disappointment and suspicion. For some, it was final proof that the whole phenomenon was an elaborate hoax, a silly prank that had gotten out of hand. But for many others, the hoax itself felt strangely unconvincing. Why would someone go to the trouble? A genuine leopard skull is not an everyday item you just find lying around. The act of planting it suggested a deep, almost obsessive engagement with the legend. It was as if someone felt the story needed a nudge, a piece of physical evidence to keep the mystery alive. In a strange way, the hoax did not debunk the beast. It deepened its mythology. It proved that the legend had become so powerful that people were willing to fabricate evidence for it, blurring the line between reality and fantasy even further. If the skull was a fake, did that mean every sighting was a lie? Or did it simply mean that the truth was still out there, hiding in the mist, waiting for a discovery that was not a cruel joke? The moor has a way of making skeptics into believers, one chilling encounter at a time. Take the story of a local farmer, a man who knew every inch of his land and the animals that belonged on it. One evening, as he was closing up his barn, he saw a shape move along the edge of the nearby tree line. It was not a fox, not a badger. It was a massive cat, its coat so black it seemed to absorb the fading light. He stood frozen, watching as the creature turned its head. He saw the unmistakable glint of its eyes, a pale, luminous green, before it melted back into the shadows without a sound. He described its movement as liquid, a ripple of pure muscle that moved with an unnerving, predatory grace. This was not an animal he recognized. It was something else entirely. Then there is the account of a woman walking her dog along a secluded path. Her small terrier was trotting ahead when it suddenly stopped, its body going rigid. A low, guttural growl echoed from the gorse bushes, a sound she said was deeper and more menacing than anything she had ever heard. From the thicket, a large, tan-colored head emerged. The creature stared directly at her, its gaze unwavering and intelligent. It was, she would later insist, a puma. She saw the powerful jaw, the rounded ears, the sheer bulk of its shoulders. For a long, heart-stopping moment, they simply looked at one another. Then, as if dismissing her, it turned and vanished into the undergrowth, leaving behind only a profound and terrifying silence. Her dog refused to move for nearly 10 minutes. Perhaps one of the most compelling reports comes from a group of campers. They were sitting around a dying fire, the moor shrouded in a thick, rolling fog. From the darkness beyond their circle of light, they heard a scream. It was not a fox's cry, which is high and sharp, but a deeper, rasping shriek that seemed to tear through the night air. It was followed by the sound of something large moving through the bracken, circling their camp. They shone their torches into the gloom, but the beams just reflected back off the dense mist, creating a disorienting white wall. They could hear it breathing, a heavy, rhythmic panting, just beyond the edge of visibility. They spent the rest of the night huddled in their tents, listening to the footsteps pad softly around them until the first light of dawn. What ties these stories together is not just the description of a large cat, but the raw emotion that accompanies them. These are not people seeking fame. They often report their encounters with reluctance, fearing ridicule. They speak of a primal fear, a deep-seated instinct that screams this thing does not belong here. They talk about the silence that follows the sighting, a stillness that feels heavier than before. The consistency is startling. Across decades, from different walks of life, people describe the same fluid movement, the same penetrating stare, the same uncanny ability to appear and vanish like a ghost. These are not vague shadows. They are vivid, traumatic memories etched into the minds of those who experience them. When so many people, independently and over so many years, report the same impossible creature, you have to wonder what they are all really seeing out there in the mist. The most famous evidence for the beast has always been what the camera has captured, or failed to capture. A photograph taken in 1993 by a tourist shows a large, black, feline form standing on a hillside. It is distant and grainy, but the silhouette is unmistakably cat-like, with a long, thick tail and a powerful stance. To the believer, this is it, the definitive proof. Yet, when experts enlarge and analyze the image, the details dissolve into pixels. Without a clear sense of scale, they argue, it could be a domestic cat photographed from an angle that makes it appear much larger, or even a fox with its bushy tail held in a certain way. The very graininess that makes the image so compelling is also what makes it scientifically useless. Another piece of footage, shot on a shaky camcorder in the early 2000s, shows a dark shape moving swiftly through the bracken. The witness is breathing heavily, the camera jostling, and for a few seconds, something is undeniably there. It moves with a low, fluid gait that feels predatory. But again, the lack of a fixed reference point is its downfall. Could it be a large dog, perhaps a black Labrador, bounding through the undergrowth? The movement is not distinctly feline enough to rule out other animals. This is the fundamental problem with all the visual evidence. It exists in a frustrating middle ground. It is clear enough to spark recognition and fuel the legend, but it is never clear enough to provide the single, undeniable detail, the close-up of a puma's face or the distinctive shoulder structure of a leopard that would silence the skeptics. The blur is not an accident. It is essential to the mystery. It allows our minds to complete the picture, to project our own fears and expectations onto those ambiguous pixels. In a strange way, the most convincing evidence is also the most easily dismissed. What do you see when you look at those grainy photographs? Do you see a monster or just a trick of the light? The camera, it seems, is just as susceptible to the Moor's illusions as the human eye. That phantom cat has long since escaped the lonely moors to stalk the imagination of an entire nation. Its journey from local oddity to cultural icon was fueled not just by eyewitnesses, but by the powerful engines of media and entertainment. The beast of Bodmin Moor found its way into countless books, from sensationalist paperbacks to serious cryptozoological investigations, each volume adding another layer to the legend. Television producers saw gold in the misty hills, sending film crews and celebrity presenters to hunt for clues in a landscape that always seemed to withhold its final secret. These documentaries often framed the mystery as a real-life detective story, pitting the compelling testimony of locals against the stern skepticism of scientists. This constant media attention did more than just report the story. It actively shaped it, turning a regional tale into a national obsession. The beast became a familiar character, a staple of British weirdness, right up there with the Loch Ness Monster. Its influence even seeped into fiction, inspiring episodes of popular television dramas and serving as the inspiration for monsters in video games, where players could finally hunt the creature that reality kept just out of reach. This saturation in popular culture has cemented the beast's place in modern folklore. It is no longer just an animal that might exist. It is a story we all share, a narrative so deeply embedded in our culture that it has taken on a life of its own. The creature in the mist has been replicated, commodified, and streamed into millions of homes. When a story is told and retold this many times, it becomes its own kind of truth, independent of any physical evidence. The beast lives on not necessarily in the bogs of Bodmin, but in the collective mind of a public that wants to believe that the wild still holds its secrets. A legend that big was never going to stay a secret for long. Soon, the misty hills of Bodmin Moor were attracting a new kind of visitor, one armed not with a farmer's rifle, but with a camera and a burning hope to catch a glimpse of the phantom cat. The beast became an unexpected economic engine, transforming from a source of fear into a powerful tourist attraction. Coaches began to roll into the area, packed with curious day trippers and dedicated cryptid hunters. Local bed and breakfasts saw a surge in bookings, particularly around the anniversaries of famous sightings. Pub landlords found that tales of the beast were excellent for business, with patrons lingering over pints as they discussed the latest theories. The creature that terrified farmers was putting money in the tills of local shopkeepers. This commercial boom quickly took physical form. You could walk into a village shop and buy a postcard of the beast, its silhouette menacing a cartoon sheep. T-shirts appeared, emblazoned with dramatic slogans. You could take home a cuddly toy version of the monster, a soft, plush panther that was a far cry from the terrifying creature of the night. Local artisans crafted silver pendants and ceramic mugs featuring the iconic cat. The beast had been branded, its ferocious mystery neatly packaged into souvenirs that fit in a shopping bag. This was folklore meeting free market capitalism, and for some, it was a welcome source of income in a region that could sometimes feel forgotten by the rest of the country. Yet, this newfound fame created a deep and complicated rift within the community. For every person who welcomed the tourists and their wallets, there was another who felt their home, and their history had been turned into a sideshow. Many lifelong residents felt a profound sense of resentment. To them, the beast was not a fun mystery, but a very real and serious problem that had been trivialized. Farmers who had lost valuable livestock watched with frustration as people treated their genuine hardship as entertainment. They saw their rugged, working landscape reduced to a monster-themed park, a backdrop for silly photos. The constant stream of amateur investigators trampling across private land, often without permission, became a genuine nuisance. The legend they had whispered about for generations was no longer theirs. It had been taken over by outsiders who did not understand the land's true character. This tension between commerce and authenticity is the modern legacy of the beast. It forces us to ask a difficult question: what is the true cost of a legend? For a community, the economic benefits of notoriety are often balanced by a loss of dignity. and a feeling of being misunderstood. The beast of Bodmin Moor is no longer just a creature. It is an industry and an identity, whether the locals wanted it or not. This complex relationship between a place and its monster reveals just how deeply a story can sink its claws into the real world, changing lives and landscapes long after the initial sighting has faded into the mist. But for every genuine, terrified witness, there seemed to be someone waiting in the wings with a camera and a plan. The legend of the beast attracted a darker element, individuals driven by a desire for fame, a twisted sense of humor, or simply the thrill of deception. The river skull was just the beginning. Over the years, investigators have been presented with a parade of fakes. There were the plaster casts of enormous paw prints, carefully crafted to mimic a big cat, but upon close inspection, the claw marks were all wrong. Big cats, with their retractable claws, rarely leave prominent claw marks in their tracks. Unlike dogs, these fakes were often too perfect, too dramatic. Then came the staged photographs. Some were crude cutouts, while others used forced perspective to make a domestic cat look like a monster looming over the landscape. One famous image, later debunked, showed a black shape crouched in the grass that turned out to be a carefully arranged piece of carpet. Each hoax, when exposed, was touted as proof that the entire phenomenon was a fraud. But the reality is more complex. These hoaxes did not create the beast. They parasitized it. They fed on a pre-existing fear and a deep public desire for proof, creating noise that made it infinitely harder to hear any genuine signal. Why would someone do this? The motives are as varied as the fakes themselves. For some, it was the fleeting notoriety of being the one who captured the beast on film. For others, it was a cynical attempt to boost tourism or sell newspapers. And for a few, it might have been a more philosophical act, a performance designed to show how easily we are fooled, how willingly we believe. These hoaxes are the static that corrupts the entire investigation, forcing every new piece of evidence to be viewed with immediate suspicion. They poison the well, making it nearly impossible for a truly authentic discovery to be taken seriously. This constant background of deception plays directly into the hands of another, more subtle force, the powerful human psychology of mass hysteria. When a community becomes fixated on a single idea, perception itself begins to shift. A log in the fog is no longer just a log. It is the crouching form of the beast. The cry of a vixen becomes the shriek of a predator. This is not about lying. It is about the brain's incredible ability to interpret ambiguous information to fit an expected pattern. This is confirmation bias in its purest form. Once you believe the beast is real, every rustle in the bushes, every strange sound in the night becomes evidence that confirms your belief. You unconsciously filter out the ordinary explanations and focus only on the things that support the extraordinary one. This collective anxiety creates a feedback loop. One person's startled report of a large, dark shape makes the neighbor more likely to interpret their own ambiguous experience as a sighting. The local paper runs the story, which primes even more people to see the beast in every shadow. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, a shared story that the community tells itself, until the legend feels more real than the landscape it inhabits. So where does this leave us? The hoaxes and the hysteria have so thoroughly muddied the waters that separating fact from fiction feels like an impossible task. The genuine, chilling encounters from credible people are now forever entangled with the pranks and the psychological projections. This does not mean the beast is not real, but it does mean that the creature, whatever it may be, is now protected by a formidable shield, a barrier woven from our own capacity for deception and our deep-seated need for mystery. The greatest enemy of the truth is not the lie, but the myth, and the beast of Bodmin Moor has become a myth so powerful it can manufacture its own evidence. While government inquiries ended and tourists moved on, a different kind of hunter remained. These are the paranormal investigators and cryptozoologists, individuals who have dedicated decades, and sometimes their entire lives, to solving this mystery. Their approach is a world away from a short-term official study. They operate with the patience of anglers, spending countless cold, damp nights on the moor, their senses tuned to every rustle and shadow. Their equipment is a blend of the practical and the high-tech. Motion sensor cameras, known as trail cams, are strapped to trees in remote locations, silently watching game trails for weeks at a time. They use night vision scopes to pierce the darkness and parabolic microphones to capture distant, unidentifiable sounds. Some even employ more esoteric tools, like electromagnetic field meters, on the off chance the phenomenon leaves an energy signature. One of the most intriguing pieces of evidence gathered by these dedicated searchers is not a photograph, but a sound. On several occasions, audio recordings have captured a deep, rasping scream echoing across the moorland valleys. This is not the cry of a fox or a badger. When analyzed and compared to known animal vocalizations, it bears a startling resemblance to the territorial call of a large felid, something like a puma or a leopard. It is a sound that should not exist in the British countryside, yet there it is, captured on a digital file, a ghostly voice from the fog. Another compelling find has been plaster casts of paw prints. Unlike the obvious fakes, these casts show impressions that are large, round, and most importantly, lack clear claw marks. This is a critical detail, as big cats walk with their claws retracted to keep them sharp, while dogs and foxes cannot. The casts show a pad structure consistent with a large, heavy cat, and the stride length suggests an animal of substantial size and power. Yet, even this evidence remains frustratingly inconclusive. Without a clear photograph of the animal making the track, or a DNA sample from nearby scat, it cannot be definitively proven. These investigators have also compiled vast databases of sighting reports, mapping them to identify potential territorial ranges and movement patterns. They have collected samples of fur found on barbed wire fences, only to have them come back from labs as belonging to nothing more exotic than a domestic cat or a badger. They live in a world of tantalizing maybes and agonizing dead ends. Their work is driven by a powerful conviction that the truth is out there, waiting for that one perfect piece of evidence. Their greatest contribution, perhaps, is not a single piece of proof, but the sheer weight of their persistence. They are the keepers of the flame, ensuring that the legend is not forgotten and that the search continues long after the headlines have faded. The phantom cat of Bodmin Moor is far from alone in its haunting of the British countryside. This creature is just one star in a constellation of mystery felines reported across the United Kingdom, a national phenomenon that suggests something more than just a local tall tale. Consider the Surrey puma, a creature that stirred panic in the home counties during the 1960s. Hundreds of people reported seeing a large, tawny cat prowling the woodlands and even suburban gardens near London. The descriptions were remarkably consistent, and the sheer volume of sightings prompted a massive police hunt. Yet, despite an official investigation and countless searches, no animal was ever captured. The parallels to Bodmin are striking, a similar pattern of widespread public testimony meeting an absolute lack of physical proof. Then there is the Beast of Exmoor, a phantom that terrorized the farms of Devon and Somerset in the 1980s. This creature was blamed for the deaths of hundreds of sheep, their bodies bearing the same kind of precise, savage injuries reported in Cornwall. The Ministry of Defense even deployed Royal Marines to conduct a covert observation of the area, yet they too found nothing conclusive. What sets these cases apart, and what binds them together? The setting is a crucial difference. Bodmin Moor is a place of ancient, raw isolation, while the Surrey puma operated on the edge of urban sprawl. This tells us the phenomenon is not confined to wild, remote landscapes. It can appear at the very doorstep of modern life. The common thread, however, is the response. In every instance, the official conclusion is one of dismissal, a declaration that no such animal exists. And in every instance, the public belief not only persists, but grows stronger, fed by a continuous stream of new eyewitness accounts. This national pattern forces a profound question. Is Britain secretly home to a population of large, unknown cats? Or is this a shared national story, a collective dream of the wild that our industrialized island secretly nurtures? The Beast of Bodmin is not an isolated mystery. It is a single verse in a much longer, stranger poem written across the whole of the British landscape. Yet the question remains, could a large carnivore truly carve out a hidden life in our modern world? To find out, we must turn from the campfire tales to the cold, hard data of the natural sciences. Ecologists and zoologists approach this mystery with a different set of tools, weighing the creature's biological needs against the reality of the British landscape. The first and most critical factor is food. Could the moor support a top predator? On the surface, the answer is a tentative yes. Bodmin Moor and similar wild areas across the UK host significant populations of roe deer and fallow deer, a perfect natural prey base for a large cat like a puma. Add to that the unfortunate but abundant supply of domesticated sheep, and you have a more than sufficient larder to sustain a solitary hunter. A single puma requires the equivalent of 1 deer per week, and the vast, unpopulated tracts of moorland could theoretically provide that. The habitat, too, seems plausible. These are not the open savannas of Africa, but a puma's natural range includes dense forests and rugged mountains. The moors, with their deep valleys, wooded ravines, and miles of trackless bog, offer countless places to hide. A big cat is an ambush predator by nature, a ghost in the ecosystem, designed to be seen only when it wants to be. An ecologist might point out that an animal's territory is not defined by how much land it covers, but by how much prey it contains. A single male puma could claim a territory of over 100 square miles, a range that Bodmin Moor could easily provide. So the possibility of survival for a lone, aging escapee is scientifically sound. But this is where the scientific perspective hits its first major obstacle. For the sightings to span decades, we are not talking about one animal. We are talking about a breeding population. This changes the equation entirely. A viable population requires enough genetic diversity to avoid inbreeding, which means not just a few cats, but dozens, spread across a much wider area than a single moor. This is where the evidence, or rather the lack of it, becomes deafening. Zoologists are quick to ask a very simple yet devastating question: where are the bodies? In a functioning ecosystem, animals die. They die of disease. They die in fights. They are hit by cars on the quiet lanes that crisscross these areas. A puma carcass is not a small thing. It would be found. Furthermore, where is the irrefutable photographic evidence from the countless trail cameras now used by hunters and naturalists? Where is the clear, close-up footage, the scat that yields undeniable big cat DNA, the sustained predation on deer that leaves a forensic trail a biologist could follow? The scientific consensus is that while a single animal could evade detection for a time, a breeding population would inevitably leave a trail of physical proof that we simply do not have. The ecological possibility exists in a fragile balance, a tantalizing maybe that is perpetually undermined by the silence of the forest itself. The land could support the beast, but the proof that it does remains as elusive as the creature's shadow. Our minds are hardwired to find faces in the clouds and creatures in the shadows. This tendency, known as pareidolia, is a fundamental part of our human psychology, a survival mechanism that primes us to detect potential threats before we can fully identify them. On a lonely, intimidating landscape like Bodmin Moor, this instinct goes into overdrive. The swirling mist becomes a moving form, the gnarled shape of a weathered tree stump becomes a crouching predator, and the call of a bird transforms into a menacing growl. Our brain, desperate to make sense of the ambiguous and the unknown, eagerly fills in the blanks with the most readily available template, the one fed by local legend and our own deep-seated fear. It is not a failure of perception, but a triumph of pattern recognition working with incomplete data. The human need for mystery is just as powerful. In a world that often feels mapped, measured, and explained, the idea that something wild and unknown still exists is profoundly compelling. The beast offers a rupture in the mundane, a tangible connection to a time when the world was filled with dark forests and unseen dangers. This longing can subtly shape what we see, bending a vague shape into the silhouette of the beast because, on some level, we want the story to be true. Fear and expectation are the final ingredients in this psychological recipe. When you walk onto the moor knowing its reputation, you are not a blank slate. You are primed for an encounter. Your heart beats a little faster, your senses are heightened, and every rustle in the heather is filtered through a lens of anticipation. This state of hypervigilance makes it incredibly difficult to judge size and distance accurately. A common black cat, seen from 50 yards away in the fog by a frightened witness, can easily be perceived as a monstrous panther at 20 yards. The emotion of the moment etches the experience into memory with such force that the person becomes utterly convinced of what they saw, regardless of the objective reality. Their truth is shaped by the landscape's power and the story's grip, so when someone insists they saw the beast, they are not necessarily lying. They may be reporting a profound psychological truth, a real experience generated by the potent cocktail of a suggestive environment, a hungry mind, and a legend waiting to be born. The legend did not fade with the 20th century. It simply migrated online. In the digital age, a sighting on Bodmin Moor can travel around the world in seconds. Smartphones are the new weapon in this ancient hunt, replacing grainy film with high-definition video, yet the results remain just as tantalizingly ambiguous. A walker films a dark, low-slung shape moving through distant bracken, posting the clip to YouTube with the title, "Is This the Beast?" The video accumulates thousands of views and hundreds of comments, a digital campfire where believers and skeptics clash. The clarity is better, but the fundamental problem persists. Scale and context are often impossible to determine. Is it a large feline or a well-fed fox? The internet amplifies every claim, making it harder than ever to separate signal from noise. New online communities have sprung up, dedicated forums and social media groups where members share their own blurry photos, analyze maps of sighting hotspots, and trade theories with the fervor of amateur detectives. These digital spaces keep the legend alive and buzzing, a constantly updating tapestry of modern folklore. They create a powerful sense of shared pursuit, connecting people who might never set foot on the moor, but are deeply invested in the mystery. This has changed the very nature of the evidence. It is no longer a solitary story told to a local reporter, but a crowd-sourced phenomenon, a collective project where everyone can participate. A single intriguing but inconclusive photo can be enhanced, zoomed, and debated by thousands, sometimes creating certainty where none exists. The beast has found a new habitat in the digital wilderness, a realm where it can be endlessly seen, discussed, and reimagined, ensuring its shadow never truly fades from the misty hills of Cornwall. Perhaps the most profound truth about the beast lies not in its potential biology, but in its undeniable symbolism. This creature has become a modern archetype, a living story that gives form to our deepest, most ancient fears. It represents the wild that we have pushed to the margins, the untamable nature that still breathes just beyond the glow of our streetlights. For all our mapping and mastering of the world, the beast is a stubborn reminder that pockets of raw, primal mystery remain, and they occasionally send an emissary into our consciousness. This touches on esoteric concepts of the shadow self, the parts of our own nature that we suppress or deny. The phantom cat embodies that repressed primal energy, the instinctual, predatory part of existence that civilized life tries to bury. Seeing the beast is like catching a glimpse of our own wild soul staring back at us from the mist, a challenge to the comfortable order we have built. It is the embodiment of the unknown, not as an abstract concept, but as a physical presence with teeth and claws. In a world that feels increasingly controlled and predictable, the beast represents the thrilling, terrifying possibility that the map still has blank spaces and that the old powers of the land are not yet extinct. It is a symbol that the wild is not just a place, but a state of being, and it is waiting patiently for us to remember it. This chasm between official denial and deep public belief is where the mystery finds its true home. When a government report declares there is no beast, it does not simply end the conversation. It ignites a more profound one about the nature of truth itself. Why do so many people trust their own eyes and the accounts of their neighbors over the conclusions of experts in London? The answer lies in a fundamental breakdown of trust. For the farmers who have found their livestock savaged, for the hikers who have frozen in their tracks at a glimpse of something impossible, the official report feels like a dismissal of their lived reality. It is not just data being rejected, it is personal experience. This creates a powerful undercurrent of resentment, a sense that the authorities, distant and disconnected, are not truly listening or, worse, are hiding something. This skepticism toward official narratives is a force far older than the beast of Bodmin. It taps into a deep-seated human instinct to question power and to value the wisdom of the local over the decree of the central. The farmer who has worked his land for 50 years feels he knows its secrets better than a scientist who spent a few weeks there. His truth is written in the torn throat of a sheep, not in the sterile pages of a report. This divide reveals that evidence is not always about physical proof. For the believers, the evidence is cumulative, a tapestry woven from hundreds of consistent stories, each thread adding strength to the whole. The lack of a body is not proof of absence, but proof of the creature's legendary elusiveness. The official denial, rather than debunking the myth, often ends up reinforcing it, painting the authorities as either incompetent or deceitful, and casting the believers as the guardians of a deeper, more authentic truth. This standoff asks us a difficult question. What do we do when the stories of a community consistently contradict the findings of science? It suggests that some mysteries are not puzzles to be solved, but narratives to be lived, and that belief can be a form of resistance against a world that feels too explained, too sanitized. The beast endures not in spite of the official denials, but perhaps because of them. The line between a physical predator and a spiritual guardian is a fine one, worn thin by centuries of whispered lore. Some believe the beast of Bodmin is not an animal in any ordinary sense, but a sentinel, an ancient protector bound to the granite bones of the moor itself. This theory sees the creature as a guardian spirit, a manifestation of the land's untamable will. In this view, the phantom cat appears when the moor's delicate balance is threatened, a living warning against human encroachment. Its sightings often spike during times of change, when new roads are planned or old farming practices are abandoned, as if the land itself is pushing back. This is not a random monster, but a conscious custodian of a sacred, wild space. The concept connects to older Celtic beliefs in genius loci, the idea that every distinct place has its own indwelling spirit. For the ancient people who built the stone circles and burial chambers that dot this landscape, the moor was alive with unseen presences. The beast could be a modern face for that oldest of spirits, a form our contemporary minds can comprehend, a dark cat instead of a shimmering god. Another, more unsettling strand of thought suggests the creature was not born, but made. Could the beast be a construct, summoned or given form through occult practices? The history of Cornwall is rich with folk magic, from the cunning men and women who practiced white witchcraft to the darker, more obscure rituals that might have been performed in the moor's lonely reaches. The idea is that a concentrated act of will, a ritual fueled by intense emotion or a specific magical intention, could potentially imprint itself upon a location. Over time, this psychic residue might coalesce, drawing energy from the land and the beliefs of the people, until it steps out of the realm of thought and into the world of shadow and substance. It would be a tulpa, a thought form, an entity that gains a life of its own because enough people, across enough generations, have believed in it. This explains its elusiveness, its ability to avoid traps and cameras, because it is not truly a creature of flesh and blood, but of collective consciousness and primal fear. Then there is the theory that ties the beast directly to the Earth's own hidden energies. The moor is crisscrossed by what are known as ley lines, hypothetical alignments of ancient sites and landmarks that are said to carry powerful terrestrial currents. Proponents of this idea point to the many prehistoric monuments on Bodmin Moor, suggesting they were placed there to mark these potent convergences of energy. A creature born from or drawn to such a powerful nexus would be a literal embodiment of the land's power, a being of earth energy that occasionally becomes visible to the human eye. It would explain why sightings are so often reported in specific, recurring locations, places where the veil between worlds is thin and the land's vital force is strongest. The beast, in this light, is not a biological anomaly, but a geomantic phenomenon, a ripple in reality where the world's hidden currents break the surface. Whether guardian, construct, or energy manifestation, these esoteric interpretations ask us to consider a far more mysterious world than the one we usually accept. They suggest that the truth of the beast may not be found in a zoology textbook, but in the hidden language of the land itself, a language written in stone, energy, and the enduring power of belief. That perfect blend of mystery and fear is precisely what gives the beast its timeless appeal. We are drawn to the edges of our understanding, to the places on the map marked "Here be dragons," and the beast of Bodmin Moor is a modern dragon for a skeptical age. It offers a mystery that refuses to be solved, a puzzle with pieces that never quite fit together, and that incompleteness is its greatest strength. If it were definitively proven to be an escaped puma, the story would become a simple case of animal control. If it were conclusively debunked as mass hysteria, it would fade into folklore, but it exists in the tantalizing space between, a story that is neither fully fact nor pure fiction. This ambiguity allows everyone to find their own truth within the tale. The romanticism of the story cannot be overlooked either. In our digital, hyper-connected world, the idea of a vast, untamed wilderness right here in Britain, a place that hides a magnificent and dangerous secret, is powerfully alluring. It speaks to a longing for a wilder, less predictable world, a landscape that still holds the capacity for wonder and terror. The beast is not just a cat, it is a symbol of nature's last stand, a defiant echo of the primeval forest that once covered this land. It has earned its firm place in the rich tapestry of British weirdness, standing shoulder to shoulder with other enduring enigmas. We are a nation that cherishes its eccentricities, and a phantom cat stalking a misty moor is the perfect embodiment of that quirky, mysterious spirit. It is a story we tell ourselves about the wild heart that still beats beneath the surface of our familiar countryside, a heart whose rhythm is the soft, padding footfall of something that should not be there. Decades of searching leave us with profound and unsettling questions. Where is the body of the beast, the carcass that would end the debate forever? If this is a flesh and blood animal, its ability to avoid capture borders on the supernatural. Modern technology should have provided a definitive answer by now. Thousands of trail cameras monitor forests across Britain, yet none have captured that one perfect, undeniable frame. A creature large enough to kill a sheep would leave a trail, a kill site with clear DNA evidence, a territory marked with consistent, verifiable tracks. Yet this evidence remains perpetually out of reach, always a blurry photo, an ambiguous sound, a story told secondhand. The silence from the scientific community is deafening, not for lack of looking, but for a lack of anything concrete to hold onto. This leads us to the second, even more perplexing question. If the beast is not a biological entity, what force is behind these deeply sincere and often traumatic sightings? We are not dealing with a community of liars. We are dealing with farmers, police officers, and hikers who are utterly convinced of what they experienced. Their accounts are too consistent and too visceral to be dismissed as mere fantasy. So what are they seeing? Is it a shared hallucination, a collective waking dream born from the moor's potent atmosphere? Could it be a psychological phenomenon where the power of suggestion and the weight of local legend literally shape perception, causing the brain to assemble a monster from shadows and fog? Or does the answer lie in something older, something tied to the land itself, a resonance that only certain individuals can perceive? The lack of a corpse is not proof of a ghost, but it does force the mystery into stranger, more speculative territory. These open questions are the lifeblood of the legend. They are the reason we keep looking into the mist, wondering if the next shadow will finally provide an answer, or if it will simply deepen the enigma that has captivated us for generations. The path through the mists of Bodmin Moor has led us through a labyrinth of fact, folklore, and outright fiction. We have sifted through government reports that deny the creature's existence and held up the chilling, sincere testimonies of those who swear they have seen it. We have examined the plausible theory of escaped animals and confronted the unsettling possibility of a phantom born from the land itself. Every piece of evidence, from grainy photographs to mysterious paw prints, seems to have an equally compelling counterargument. The body of the beast is missing, and perhaps that is the entire point. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. They are meant to be endured, to be debated around campfires and across digital forms, keeping the wild alive in our imaginations. They remind us that the world is not yet fully tamed, that maps can still have edges where the unknown patiently waits. So now we turn to you. What do you believe is lurking in the fog? Have you ever felt that primal prickling on the back of your neck in a lonely place? Share your own thoughts and theories in the comments below. The hunt for the truth is over, but the conversation, like the legend itself, is forever.